Warning: the following video may have language that some viewers may find offensive, and others are already offended. Viewer discretion is advised, but not really. No animals were hurt in the making of this 4-hour feature film.
"20 years ago, the scene behind me was very different for two Southwold, Ontario residents. This is where the bodies of Roger Smith and his common-law partner, Wendy Haveron, were found, right here in their home on Wellington Road between London and St. Thomas, Ontario. On February 2nd, 1999, Southwold Fire Department responded to a house fire at 11553 Wellington Road. Police investigation revealed that the cause of death was blunt force trauma. It's been 20 years since the OPP had launched their initial investigation, and we're asking people in the know to come forward now.
We never thought it would last this long. We thought that it was going to be solved fairly quick.
Wanda is Wendy's sister. She says even 20 years after her sister's murder, the family still feels the pain of her loss.
Probably about 6 months after it happened, I was going through my scrapbooks and I was reading the stories, and then all of a sudden it hit me. This is our story. This is us. This isn't reading about someone else's murder. This is ours. This impacted us as a family.
Wanda and her family are hopeful that closure will come to the family soon.
We may never know the why or the where of it, but to know that someone is paying, and that would mean a lot to all of us.
The Ontario Provincial Police does not close unsolved homicide investigations.
Superintendent Ken Leopard is the head of the OPP's Criminal Investigation Services.
Small pieces of information that the individual may think is of no meaning to the police allows us to put together a bigger picture or a bigger puzzle. And all of those smaller pieces are critical to our investigation.
The OPP never closes an unsolved homicide. An investigator is always assigned to the case until it is resolved. We're asking anybody that has further information to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS or by going online at londoncrimestoppers.com.
So that video was taken from the OPP to update people on a cold case that they have that was never officially closed, and we're going to talk about on this episode of the double murder that happened out on Wellington Street back in 1999. February 2nd was when it happened. Roger Smith and Wendy Haveron were found in a burnt out home on the farm out there. And joining us today is Wendy's sister, Wanda, who's over the years has done quite a few interviews and stuff trying to update basically the family. This murder has never been solved. We're going to dive in a little bit about this today, maybe on what the police have told them. Maybe we can get some updates. Somebody out there knows. Somebody has information. We know that. We definitely know that. So, Wanda, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, so this is important. We want to give the family closure. You did an interview a few years ago, and you were talking about you may never know the whats or the whys, but the closure is very important to you. You guys have lost now some family members that never got that closure, right?
Yes.
Your mom, your sister.
2 marriages broke down. Two of us lost our jobs.
Yeah.
As well.
From all this.
All of this.
What kind of stress has this put on you? Like all these years, what is it as a family? You said in the interview as you were looking through your scrapbook, and then you realized this was your story.
Yes.
This is you.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
To think that it could happen to you, because everything in life, you think that, right? Anything bad happens and you go, oh, that must be terrible.
Yeah.
But until you've actually gone through it, then you know exactly how terrible, and that's what we're going through. Now, I know some people get closure because of they know who done it, and then, you know, they go to jail and they do whatever. That part's good for them because they get the closure then. But we don't have any. We're still, there's somebody out there still that has murdered these two people.
Yep.
And we need to get.
Now, do you guys have yours, without, I guess, saying completely who, but do you think you know who did it?
We have been told right from the start, pretty much, that there was two main suspects.
Okay.
And it's never varied from there.
Okay.
Anytime it's come up, we've always asked the same questions, and it's still the same two people.
So do the police think maybe you're correct in those assumptions, but it's the evidence? It's
not enough evidence, not enough for conviction.
Okay. Okay.
It's quite detailed when you go to arrest somebody with something like that, because they had explained to me that if you have 10 pieces of paper on that person, the judge might only read one. Okay. Might only read one that day, and you better make sure that one piece of paper is good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to when you guys were growing up. Okay. Who was Wendy? What kind of person was she?
Wendy was a perfect little girl. She was always prim, proper.
Was she?
Buttered all four corners of her toast, which used to drive my sisters nuts.
Did she?
Yeah, because it took too long, right? You know, you just usually butter the toast.
Yeah.
No, Wendy had to do every...
Oh, wow. So she's precise in her...
She was precise. The first one up was the best one dressed, and that was Wendy.
Was she?
So she always had the best clothes. And she was helpful, always helpful. Like, she was child number 3, and then there was 8 of us. And so
8 kids?
8 kids
Wow.
altogether.
Okay.
And she never lost her patience with any of us. She was so good with all of us, and taught each one of us something different. Like, I learned how to do makeup and hair and stuff like that, just being in the bathroom with her. And I mean, we had a little bathroom.
Okay.
But she'd go, okay, come on in. You'd stay there, and she'd talk with you, and I'd watch her pluck her whatever, and I'm going, I don't think I'll do that when I'm older. And yeah, she was just always there for you.
And you guys were all raised here in St. Thomas?
Yes.
Okay. And so where did Wendy schooling? Where'd you guys go to school?
She went to Elmdale School, Union before that.
Okay.
And Elmdale, and then Voden. And she actually left town when she was 16 and went to London and got her first job. And so she basically lived in London for quite a few years.
Oh, did she? Okay. All right. Now the family, were you guys really close?
Yes.
Yeah? So she was always in touch with you guys, you always hung out, you always worked together?
Yes.
Okay, so...
She very often would take nieces and nephews in.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the kids lived on the farm with her or learned on the farm.
Okay.
She loved to have people around.
Okay, so let's talk about, when did Wendy meet Roger?
I can't remember the exact year. Oh, I think it was 84. She had just come back from London from a failed marriage with her son. And they met through mutual friends.
Right.
And then it wasn't long after that she moved out to the farm.
Okay.
And she used to work the farm as well.
So this was Roger's farm, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was his family farm.
Okay.
And so, yeah, when she first went out there, she worked the farm as well. But then in later years, she got ill and she couldn't go out to do the cows anymore.
Oh, okay. So what? So her and Roger, they're all out at the farm. How long did she live there on the farm? How many years was she out there?
Oh, it was
Quite a few.
20-something years.
Oh, was she? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, long time.
Yeah. I don't know if it was quite 20, maybe 15.
Okay.
I can't
So,
do the
so
math,
she was out there a long time.
She was
though.
there
So
a long time.
Her and Roger were doing well together. Roger, I didn't know Roger myself either. So was he? What kind of guy was he like?
He was quiet. He didn't speak unless spoken to, basically.
Okay.
He anything he did talk about was the farm,
Did
cows.
he? Okay. So he was
Yeah.
a farmer at heart.
Yeah, he would socialize, like he came in for family dinners and stuff,
Or did he?
and he'd stay long enough to eat, and then he'd have to go out for the cows. But
Yeah.
yeah, he just
So they were happy.
they were happy. They were just quiet in their own little environment, happy to
Okay.
be out there. And
Okay. So leading up now on February 2nd, I know you and I were kind of chatting last night. So the night would have been then February 1st. Wendy was to call you that night,
yes,
and she didn't. Let's talk a little bit about that, like that leading up to that night. And,
Wendy was the type of person that her nickname was Pesty,
Pesty. Okay.
because she would pest you until she got a hold of you.
Okay.
She cared that much. And so over the weekend, we're going back to Friday night of that weekend, my husband was admitted to the hospital with pneumonia. So I was talking to her the Friday night, and that's when we got talking about her furnace not working properly, and she was cold, and so then I told her to come into Mum's and, stay there. But she said, no, I want to stay here. I'm like, well, get some blankets on the bed. So anyway, so I talked to her the whole weekend, and we were talking about my husband, like I said. And then on Sunday, we had a baby shower for my niece, and I called her after the baby shower to tell her how everything went.
Okay, so Wendy wasn't there.
She wasn't there.
Okay.
She didn't go out a lot. And there was some issues because it was Michelle, our niece, was the one that lived there with her that was sexually assaulted by Roger.
By Roger?
Yes.
Oh,
He was
okay.
doing time at that time. That's where he was.
Yes, I did
Yes.
read that where he was serving
And
weekends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what he was doing. He was serving the weekend. So
Okay.
things between her and Michelle were a little iffy, so she didn't
Yeah.
come to the shower. So I talked to her, like I said, and then I told her, I said, okay, I'll call you tomorrow night, which would be Monday,
Yeah.
because I had to work 3 to 11, and I'll tell you how Stuart was doing.
Okay.
So then our phone call ended with her, it always ended this way, I love you more, I love you more. And she said, I love you more. And I said, but your arms are longer, so that's more yet. And she said, yeah, it is. And that was the last thing that we spoke.
Was it? That was the last time.
And so anyway, like I said, that night, Monday night, I said to my boys, I said, if the phone rings, Aunt Wendy's going to call. And I said, just let me know.
Yep.
Even though I could hear the phone if I wasn't in sound sleep yet.
Yep.
And I never got the phone call. And so that in the morning, we got the phone call that said that they had died from my brother-in-law. And then I had said something happened between the time that she talked to her son and the time she was supposed to call me. And she would have called me by at least 20 after 11, because she knows I got home at 15 after.
Okay. Right.
She would have been starting at 20 after, and she would have just kept calling until she got me.
Okay.
But she didn't. And I know the police were a little skeptical about that. They didn't really believe me.
Oh, well, that's a big
she could have
clue,
just
though.
fell asleep. She could have, like they were kind of And I said, you don't know my sister.
Yeah.
I said, she would have called
Yeah.
if she could have.
Okay.
So I believe that they were killed earlier in the evening,
Okay.
and then the
Yeah.
fire was set later.
Okay. So, yeah. So that all automatically broke the pattern of who Wendy is. She didn't make that call. And if she's that persistent and everything, so you think sometime earlier that evening, we're not sure exactly when. Now what?
Her son was the last one to talk to her.
What time
around
was that
10:30.
at? Around 10:30 at night? Okay. So right shortly after that, then is probably when this happened. So what do you think? Now you said the fire, was it reported in the morning? Was it
Yes.
like 6 a.m. or something?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think happened? Bit like around that time.
I believe what happened was Roger would go to jail on the Friday night. He would be let out on Monday morning.
Okay.
So when he came home Monday, he would just basically sleep all day Monday. Because
Okay.
apparently you don't sleep in jail.
Right.
And so the farmhand would be there.
Okay.
And what I believe happened was the farmhand might have known.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's all
Well,
stuff
he-
that
he
the
might-
police would have
Yeah,
interviewed
right.
anyway. So,
it's because he was right there, so he
Yeah.
might have known.
Yep.
Or maybe he's seen something, I don't know. But I feel like it was deliberately set
okay.
because of the accelerant that they used, for one thing.
Okay. So
And
they.
that house would have went up like a tinder block,
Okay.
because, I mean, it was just, I mean, it's an old house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just parts, burned. And,
Yeah, which is kind of unusual. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, only a certain section,
yeah,
a particular area of the house was burnt, the other wasn't.
and it was because of the accelerant that they used.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it was because someone had time to think after all night, had time to think and go, oh, I don't know, maybe.
Cover up?
Maybe we should cover it up. Maybe
Cover it
we
up.
left something. Maybe, I don't know, so let's go back and,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just my way of thinking, but I don't know.
Well, it's a very big possibility. I mean, there's lots of incidents in the past that have happened.
And I'm just saying, like, the farmhand might have seen something, but I don't know because I never talked to him or anything, even though I knew him. We didn't talk that day out at the farm or anything, but
How were the OPP then, when they started this investigation? Were they pretty upfront with you guys, like telling you what was going on, or was
they were
Was it?
really good. They were really on top of everything.
Yeah?
Yep.
So what do you think has happened? Why has this not been?
I think mainly it's because they couldn't get the DNA that they needed.
Okay.
I think that's what it was. That they needed.
Now, you said Roger was serving weekends, so how much of a strain did that put on Wendy and Roger?
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah?
It was hard.
Yeah. I mean, from what I hear of how Wendy, what kind of person she was, she would have been hurt by
She was.
what happened, right? But at the same time, she obviously loved him.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
stuck by him.
Stuck by him, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of. I don't know whether it was true or whether this really happened or how bad was it or,
Yeah.
like how much, fabrication was there on a teenage girl's part.
Right.
Kind of like, there was a lot of doubts,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that caused problems between the two of them.
If next week the OPP came to you and said, we've solved it, we have a suspect, charges laid, how would that make you feel?
Relief.
Yeah.
Relief. Because, right from the start, we thought sure that it was going to be solved.
Right.
Like it sounded like a cut and dry case. Like
Okay.
we know exactly who we're looking at. We're going to get them. They were so focused, the OPP. They just were really, really on it.
Okay.
And then to have it go 26 years and still,
So was it them telling you that every time they got a lead, say, it just dropped out? No matter what?
it kept coming back to the same people.
Did it? I read online there was stories printed about a car that was seized and taken in, and they went through it, and they were so sure that this vehicle was all part of this. But then yet,
But they
nothing. Wow.
couldn't pinpoint anything.
What'd that do to your family? Like, I mean,
Just
you all must have been so mad, though.
yeah, a little bit. Like I know my sister that's passed now. We had a meeting out at the OPP, and she said, could we just like maybe be in a room alone with this person, maybe? And the OPP was like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of families that are going through something like this that wish they could just give me that person for 10
Yeah.
minutes.
And it kind of put a wedge between our family and Roger's family as well,
Okay.
because I guess I'm more vocal.
Okay.
So I've been, right from the start, I've been, in their face and what's going on and what,
Yeah.
and whereas with Roger's family, it's kind of like, let's just let it lay. If you come and ask me a question, I'll answer it, but just
They don't want to
they
be out
weren't
there.
kind of pushing like
Is his
like I
family
do.
still around this area?
Yeah,
Are they? Okay.
I'm not, his sister's never lived around this area since she married,
okay.
but I'm not sure where she's from.
Okay.
I don't even believe I've ever met her.
Now, we've seen the stories and the updates, and there's been stories published in there. OPP has a $50,000 reward still for information.
Yes.
Anyone that can come forward. Now, one thing that I don't think any news agency wants to say. They don't put it together, but let's talk about biker clubs. From what I've looked at in this area from 1991 and then going through, we've had a few murders. There's 4 of them in particular within like a 12-year span that all tie back to bikers.
Which is a lot
It is a lot.
for like this area.
It is. And we all remember the Scott Rossiter incident, the young man that was a cop in Ingersoll who lived here in town, was murdered in 1991. And then later, the fellow that was the murderer of the officer, he in fact himself got murdered and was taken to a local biker's farm in this area, who then told the guy to get him out of here, and he was found not too far down the road, buried with his arms up and everything, which I've been told that's some kind of biker message.
I had heard it was execution style.
Probably. Yeah, probably. So that's in 1991. Then we come up in 1994. And now we have Sonia Sywing. And her body was found out at Southwold Earthworks on the Iona Road. So we got a 3-year span. We got a second body shows up. This all ties to biker thing, which we just watched the other night on TV, a whole segment about this, which had some pretty interesting stuff in there. And it talked about her leaving a club in London to go to a biker property, a farm, not far from where her body was found. So then anyway, something happened about missing drugs or something happened, and Sonia was beaten and her body was dumped out on South Old Earthworks. The next one, then we come another 5 years. We got Wendy and Roger. This happens. So my question to you is, I know it's not going to be on Wendy's side, but Roger, do you think it has something tied to bikers there? Could it possibly been money, drugs, something that might have...
I have heard, yes, that
Yeah.
he was into drugs.
Into it, yeah. So maybe they come
I had
collecting?
heard that it was over drugs.
Okay.
I had heard that Wendy just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which how can you be in the wrong place at the wrong time at your own house?
Well, she lives there, yeah.
Right. But it wasn't supposed to be about her. It was him.
Okay, so basically, she was killed because she was a witness. Did she know something was going to happen? Did she?
I don't know. I sometimes wonder because she had told me that weekend that I talked to her
Yeah.
that she said, boy, Roger sure is worried about Stuart. He's called here 5 times this weekend. He
Wow.
never called home that many times.
Wow.
And it was just strange. And it just made me think that she didn't want to leave the house Friday night, like when I said she was cold.
Right.
She didn't want to leave the house. She also didn't want to leave the house unlocked.
But she wasn't well at that time either,
She wasn't well. She had a feeding tube, and she had a catheter.
Okay.
She was probably 89 pounds.
Wow, she's thin.
She smoked and she drank 7-Up. That was her vice.
Oh, 7-Up.
7-Up.
Okay.
And so anyway, if she had said he called that many times, and it was very strange because Roger and Stuart didn't really know each other that well. They didn't hardly ever talk. Like he never hardly talked to any of my family.
Right.
So it was very weird. I just kept thinking when she had said that after we found out what happened,
Yeah.
I thought somebody knew something was going to happen. There was a deadline, there was a date.
How do you think he might have known?
But I think because it was about him.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I truly think it was
Yeah.
totally about him.
I mean, the police are always, you give them the information, they do what they can. But like in the Sonia video, the retired police officer said, the family cannot rely on the police. You cannot. There's a lot you guys have to do. And there's a lot of mainstream media that they'll tell certain parts of the story, but they won't tell it all. And I think a lot of it is you need something like this that you can talk openly, without really throwing into the fire some names. But we know there's people out there that know. And I've talked to your sister that passed away. She sat on my front porch just a few years ago, and we were talking about this and I'll come right out and say it. So at that time I was driving cab, and there was a certain individual that we've talked about that told me information about kind of that night and things that happened. And when I talked to your sister, she said afterwards that she knew this was accurate because I relayed information from him that only they knew. The police had told, I guess, you guys maybe, or her, but they never publicly released certain things that this guy told me about. And this is one of those things that the guy told me that, he will take this to his grave. He will never, ever speak of. And I'm thinking, you just did. You already told me about it, So who else are you telling? Is there part of him that wants to really come out and say it because he was going through some pretty serious health issues himself? So is there some remorse in there without really coming out to say it? But we know there's people who know, obviously.
Oh, yeah, and the other thing was when when it did first happen and we did know who the suspects were, we were kind of low-key about it. Like, if you see them, don't say anything, or
Did the
don't-
police tell you this too? Like, keep quiet,
basically,
don't,
don't, you know, like, don't engage kind of thing, or
Okay.
whatever. Just watch what you say kind of thing.
Yep.
And so we've always been like that. We've never come right out and said a name
Yeah.
to, you know, like,
Which is
anybody.
hard because, I mean, if you publicly come out with a name, you, like, again, you better damn well make sure that you have
Exactly.
the evidence to
Yeah.
back that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was hard because two of my sons were suspects as well.
Okay.
My older two sons, because they both worked at the farm, and thankfully they were cleared.
Right.
But
They must have went through hell, though.
they did. They
To
did.
even be as a suspect, they would be just watched and probed and...
And through my sons, I was able to speak to several kids around their same age, in the 20s and whatever, that might know something.
Okay.
So I, in turn, would you know, very nicely ask them if they would go to the police and say what they know. A few of them did.
Okay.
I don't know if it got anywhere, but at least they did. So, I mean, I've tried for 26 years to get some answers out there.
Can you believe that time already? 26 years.
And I'm just afraid that we're never going to know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, now my oldest sister is in a nursing home. She's got Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Beth's gone. She was another big advocate like I
She
was.
didn't, you know, but I said, and I was talking to my other half last night, I said, the ones in your family that are gone now, they know. Everything came to
Yep.
light to them.
Yep.
So they know. But you never got a chance in this life to get closure, right? So they know exactly now the who's, what's, where's of what. You know, they can see it all. But that night, so Roger, somebody came out and paid Roger a visit. His death was blunt force trauma. This is what, even in the video that we watched, the OPP said. Both death.
Now, just back up for a minute. That night as well, the tractor broke down.
The farm
The
tractor?
farm tractor.
Okay.
So Roger's cousin had come to fix the tractor.
Okay.
Not the cousin that lived down the road, another cousin that does tractor work or something. So he had come, and I think this was around 9 or so. He had come and fixed the tractor, so then there was him that came to visit, and then the son talked to his mom, and then I was supposed to talk to Wendy. So I think whatever happened after 10:30.
Okay. Blunt force trauma was cause of death. The house was set on fire, and Roger and Wendy were in the living room when the fire was set. Was both bodies found in the basement or just Roger's?
No, he wasn't found in the basement. He was,
Was one of them found?
no, there was a hole in the floor,
Okay.
and a chair that sat there would have gone into the basement if it hadn't have been for the piping.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Furnace pipe.
Okay.
Furnace pipe stopped
Yeah.
whatever was going to go through that
Oh, okay.
big hole in the
Okay.
floor.
All right. So I was under the
And-
impression that one of them had fallen down through.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Not that we know of. Like, I don't know, but just judging by the way the hole in the floor looked, that's what it looked like. That nothing
Okay.
would get past that big.
So fire department shows up that morning. They get a call, 911 call that there's a fire. At what point, I would imagine then if it was only contained a small area of the house, they would have found both of them pretty quick. Now, did the police ever tell you were the use of accelerants where they put on their bodies too? Were they burned pretty bad or?
Yes. When I talked to a police officer, Deborah Gleason, at the scene.
Okay.
Now, when we first got to the scene, the officer did tell us, the OPP officer, he said, "Now I'm going to tell you that you're going to see these firemen," because the firemen were all still there.
Right.
And he said, "Now you're going to see some of them laughing and talking and joking." He said, "But it has nothing to do with what's gone on here.
Okay.
We want you to know that this is serious
Yeah, yeah.
and this is just a way of release."
Well, it is because they see some pretty horrific
and
things,
so then
right?
we had no idea what exactly he was talking about, not even really realizing why they were still there at like 9:30 in the morning when it supposedly happened earlier, right?
So Roger and Wendy's remains were already gone when you guys got there, or were they still in there?
They were still there when we
were
got
they?
there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I had talked to, each of us talked to one of the police officers that were there, and I had Deborah Gleason, and I'm not sure who the fellow was. But anyway, I had to describe her. So I was describing her. They wanted to know what hand she smoked with, what hand, like, she right-handed, left-handed, whatever.
Yep.
Any scars, so I mean, I knew everything.
Okay.
And the last thing I said to her was, I said, "Did you not want to know what color her hair was?" And she turned and she looked at me and she said, "No, they were burnt beyond recognition."
Yeah. So there was no hair left to.
And I was like, "Oh."
Wow.
So
That would have just thrown you right.
To answer your question, I think, the accelerant, they put it on them.
They put it on them. Was Roger a drinker?
Nope.
I was told he used to go in the Brunswick a lot.
Yeah,
town.
but he didn't drink.
So he didn't
really.
drink. Okay, so he's just in. Was he there because did Wendy go there, or was it just Roger went to see friends?
Sometimes they went with friends to the bars, but not too often. He
Okay.
usually went by himself. He ran around on her quite a bit. There was a lot of infidelity there.
Oh, bugger.
And that's where the biker club comes in there.
Okay.
He spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, yeah. But, and that brings me back. So in 1991, we have that, the Scott Rossiter killing. Then Sonia's killing out on the Iron Road. Then we got Roger and Wendy. And still kind of that connection again.
The police did tell us that the biker angle came up.
Okay.
There was a lot of people that said, yes, it was them, and other people saying, no, that's not their style. They wouldn't have,
Did they ever tell you what group they thought?
But no, they never said.
Just a biker organization, but they never nailed down to, because we know of Hell's Angels.
They kind of wanted to get away from it, it sounded like to me. They kind of wanted to, because I had asked that one time, I had said, are you sure that we don't have tunnel vision on focusing on these two people?
Right.
And they said, no, we're
That's one of my questions is, do you think they were investigating all avenues or trying to bury certain things? Because maybe they knew that with this biker side could possibly be the way, but to prove that was going to be almost impossible. Or who knows?
I don't know. It's hard to understand because, like I said, when you're friends, like most people don't think you're friends with bikers. You're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to have buddies and pals, right? But I mean,
they're individually they're just like everybody else.
They're still like everybody else. They're human, and they do have friends. And Roger did hang out with them. So
wow. So we've got 26 years later. When was the last time OPP have ever talked to you guys? Do they stay in touch, or do you have to call them to try and find out?
I usually call them.
Okay.
I usually call, And sometimes it's the same person, and then sometimes they give it to a new person
Oh, okay.
because they don't have the money. It's like everything else, right? They don't
Yeah.
have the money to keep it open.
Right, right, right. So it's
if
not
something
yeah.
comes up, then they'll add somebody to the thing and say, okay, look over this again. We got a tip.
Do you think that kind of helps prolong this too? Because now you get a new person on it. They're not familiar with maybe, they can always go back and reread certain things,
Yeah.
but they're not the ones that have been involved in the past, right? So,
At both aspects, it's kind of good because you get someone new in there
True.
and they are a go-getter and go, God, I want to get right into this.
yeah.
But then they lose
Okay.
it.
If somebody has any information at all, doesn't matter small, most people think, well, what I know is, it ain't going to mean anything. But what would you like to say to that person? Like, what did your family, I'm sure your sisters always said, man, if we could just talk to people, just get them to come forward. What would you like to say to somebody that maybe has something? Who knows what it could be a major break for the police, but they don't think so. It may be so minute that, but what would the family, because 26 years, you guys are waiting, I'm sure Wendy would like nothing more than for you guys to know, because she just happened to be there. Wasn't her.
I would like to tell someone that if it happened to you, would you not want everything done possible?
Yeah.
So no matter how little it might be, just come forward and say what you know. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. They can do it anonymously.
Yeah, you can
They
do
don't
it
have to tell 'em.
anonymously. And that's where I think we got into a lot of trouble at the start, was because once the word bikers came out, a lot of people backed off
Okay. Yep.
because people are afraid.
Yep. A lot of retaliation in biker groups.
Yes.
So they think, okay, I'm not going to come forward. I don't want to be targeted. Yeah.
But
Yep.
I'm only one person.
Yeah.
But I wanna get this solved.
Yeah.
If not for
Even if they found somebody now and charged them, it's never going to bring Wendy Roger back.
No.
We know that. They're not coming back. It's a family peace of mind to know that somebody at least has been held accountable.
exactly. There's
Right.
so many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
So many. Like, we have never been told how the dogs died.
Okay, so let's talk
That-
about that. There was dogs that they found dead
There
too.
was dogs that they found, and that is something only the suspects know, and the police.
Right.
We do not know. They won't tell us
On how they died.
on how they died.
Yeah.
Now, the white dog was a German Shepherd. She would not let you go past that door if she did not know you.
Okay.
And the other one
So
was
there's a little.
a beagle. Ow!
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like, ugh. But yeah, Bernice,
Okay.
she was. You had to know someone. If she knew you, she'd let you in.
Were the dogs in the house dead or outside?
No, they were found in the house.
Okay, so the shepherd, you wouldn't get in the house unless it knew you, and they were found in the house. Okay, so yeah, lots of little clues there, right?
Yeah.
That they can dig at. So, what was, from the police perspective, the murder weapon? They said death was blunt force trauma. I read, we saw the pictures about a bat.
Yep. Aluminum baseball bat.
Okay, aluminum baseball bat. Did they find it?
Yes.
Like they have that bat.
They have it.
Was it at the scene still?
No,
Okay,
it wasn't at the scene.
really?
It was a couple of places before it got found.
Really? And they still can't pin it down to,
Yeah.
So whoever owned the bat is one thing, but who was transporting the bat?
Yeah.
Wow, that's got to be so frustrating, because there had to be DNA on those bats.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think back then, though, too. Like, I mean, we're talking, what was it? 1999, but DNA was still, it was out then, but I don't think as strong as it is now. But what did the police ever tell you about the bat? What did they ever say about the bat?
They never really said much about it, other than that was the, and it was a year later,
Okay.
exactly a year later, that we found out it was a bat.
Okay.
So it took them a while to find it, but like I said, it was at a couple of different places.
Right.
And
Wow. Couple of different, that's weird.
it was at least three different places.
Wow.
Besides, I'm not exactly.
How do you think they ever found the bat?
I'm not sure how they found it. I'm not sure which last place they found it at.
Yeah.
I have a clue, but I'm not sure.
Not sure. So Wendy and Roger buried together in Fingal,
In Fingal.
at the Fingal Cemetery. Okay.
Now, Wendy's son, believes wholeheartedly that Roger is to blame for his mother's death.
Right.
He does not have anything good to say about him.
Yeah.
He thinks it was all due to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
So it's whatever trouble he got into
yes,
and stuff is what led to this. Wendy being there on the property, she lived there, but when they came for him, she had to go too, because leave no witnesses. Right?
yeah, because they didn't have any money. And the thing of it is why, if someone owes you something, why do you kill them? You're not going to get anything.
Right.
All you're getting is you've killed that person.
Yeah.
I don't understand that aspect of it, but
Right.
it's like if there was a deadline, like you got to come up with this
Well,
money by Monday.
That's
If
kind of
not,
like
that's it, right?
you know,
And
bikers,
that's-
whatever, they're organized crime organizations that pertain to this kind of stuff, that's their mottos. I guess it's, that you borrow, you use, you have, whatever, you don't pay. The penalties are severe, and this is what it is. So they know you're not going to pay them. You don't have anything. This
Yeah.
is kind of the outlook that comes, right? So, yeah, that's tough too. So, I just don't get, the connection of all the different murders that we've had in here. And then it wasn't long after this.
Oh, excuse me, Tony, I just remembered something now that we're going with those murders. Roger's cousin was murdered that same year,
What, in 92?
99.
Oh, or 99, I mean, yeah. Really?
Dale Smith. He was murdered in London by, the guy's name was Vaughn. And he was with someone, that guy's wife.
Okay.
He got
okay.
found
Yeah.
with,
Yep.
and he was beat.
And then he was taken out from having affairs with a guy.
Because I know I flipped out when that happened. I thought they were coming after all of us.
Right. But it turned out to be he was
But it
having
turned
an
out to
affair thing, but that would be pretty alarming.
It was very alarming because it was in the summertime, I think, that summer.
Wow, that's quite a blow. That's two of them. That's quite a blow. Then shortly, was a few years after from Roger and Wendy, then we had the big biker cleansing that happened, and the bodies were dumped out on the Stafford line. That was all talked about in that show that night too. That the Fifth Estate show that just came out was it had a lot of pointers in there that almost were at every one of these had some kind of tie back, right? So, I mean, the police are probably still clawing away at this. I don't know. But what they said in that, though, that retired police officer said that the families don't rely 100% on the police. What an eye-opener. Because you think you're safe, like they're going to look after it, right? They're going to do it, they're going to find it, they're going to lay the charges in. They can't. Sometimes they can't. And it's you guys that have to keep pressing.
Whenever I would find something out, I would call,
Okay.
and I would talk to whoever was in charge at the time, and I would say, I know this might sound silly or stupid or whatever, but, and I'd just tell them what I had to tell them, and they could take it or leave it.
You know, and that's one thing, though, after I talked to your sister, and I told her, you know, the conversation I had with this guy this particular night, she said, you know, I'm going to pass this on, I rang, and I said, absolutely. Like, you know, if it helps, whatever. And then, but I never got contacted by anybody, you know, to find out more. Probably they already had that information, maybe. That's why. May already knew. But nothing was ever, they just again.
Well, yeah, because I had talked to someone. Usually after we do a broadcast, you usually get people on Facebook popping into your website, whether it be me, my nieces, or whoever, right?
Right.
And this one person said, I've never ever been talked to.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, that's weird, because this person knows everybody in St. Thomas and knows, you know, he's got his nose to the ground all the time.
Right.
And yet they never ever talked to him.
Yeah.
I think they have since.
Wow.
I don't know, but I just found it very weird.
Hopefully by this here right now, we show them the OPP video. I'm going to play a video here to close it off. You did it with the London Free Press, I believe it was, out at the scene. How often do you go out there?
I go out every year at least.
Every year? Yeah.
On the anniversary.
On the date, yeah.
And when it gets warmer, I usually go out and just kind of stand there. If I want to be close to Wendy, I go to the farm.
Okay.
I don't go to the cemetery. She's not there.
Okay.
She's at the farm.
She loved the farm.
I have several pictures that I have taken with orbs
Oh, yeah?
in them, and so she's there.
It's out there. Yeah. You feel her out there?
I feel her there.
Yeah.
And my sister Beth, who is right here, she's there now too.
Oh, okay.
We sprinkled her ashes.
Now, Beth, you have a little bit of her ashes there. So this is the sister that sat on my porch that we talked about all this.
Yep.
How does it make you feel now when you go out to the scene, Wendy's, but you see the barn is collapsing, like it's coming apart now. The boards are coming off.
It's sad.
Yeah, because I mean, despite of what Roger did and the guy, but he loved farming. The cows were his life. He had dairy. I'm sure that was probably a pretty nice looking property at one time, years ago.
Yeah, quite a few acres.
Yeah. I noticed right away from the original scene from the video, the news clippings back then, the two small trees that were on either side of the front door that are still there, but
And
quite
that's where I
a bit
get
bigger
that's
now.
where I get my most orbs.
Do you? Right around the front there?
Right around
Yeah.
the front, because that's where the couch was, right there.
Okay. Okay. That living room window right there.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense. That was to, if you're facing it, that was to the left, was it not?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Trying to think back to the TV, to that video.
They hardly ever used the front door. It was mostly the back door.
Yeah. Yeah. Which a lot of farms were pretty much like that. So the video, you guys went out, London Free Press. When did you guys do that one?
That would have been in the 20th anniversary.
Okay, so about 5 years ago, you were out there. How are the neighbors? Like when you guys go out there or your family there, do the neighbors ever pop over because there's people on the property?
No. Once, I don't know if it was Beth that went out. Yeah, it was her daughter. Beth and her daughter went out, and they had put up a sign, because at first we used to put up signs out front,
Okay.
and they had put out one, and the Smith family asked, they didn't come down the road and talk to them per se.
Okay.
They called the police and asked the OPP to tell us to stop putting stuff out there.
Okay, so the Smith family still owns the property?
Yes.
They still own the barn and whatever else out there
It's
now?
leased.
Okay.
It's leased out.
Okay.
But
Which
they
is
own-
probably the land? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Roger's family still are in possession of it. So they
Yeah.
still live right in that area then? God, it's just, you think they could just close this. Wow. So hopefully by this, maybe we can just, we'll throw,
Yeah.
I've been showing pictures as we're talking to Wendy and Roger and different things, so.
Yeah. I just
Hopefully.
want people to know it's not ever too late.
Right.
Like the police are still there. They're going to work on it no matter what.
Yeah,
So if you have something to say it.
yeah. Just help you out and close it.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, Wendy she obviously didn't deserve to die that way. And even whatever Roger's lifestyle was, that, Wendy was just devoted to him. She loved him. And
But it also tells me with him calling her 5 times that weekend,
yeah,
it also tells me that he did care.
yeah,
He did care for her. He wanted to know what was going on.
Absolutely.
So in his own way, he was protecting her
yeah,
to see what was going on.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, okay. Well, hopefully we can get somebody out there that has some kind of information, right? You
I
never
hope
know. So we'll pop up all those pictures and stuff that we took last night from your scrapbook. I see you've got that with you, and it travels
Yeah.
around with you. And
I carry this with me all the time.
yeah. Well, why not? Hopefully her spirit will still give you the power and guide you to keep going.
Yep. She was a
And see.
wonderful person.
Yeah. I bet you she's missed by a lot of people. So, all right, Wanda, thanks. Hopefully
Thank you.
somebody out there is going to see this. I'm sure we got some information out. Well, I'm pretty sure we got some information out that you never would have heard on an actual news broadcast because they just can't do it. So, guys, make a call, Crime Stoppers, whatever. Do it anonymously, but you see 26 years, can you imagine your loved one, was killed and nobody come forward to tell you there's a suspect, no arrests, unknown, okay? So, all right, Wanda, thanks.
Thank you.
Let's see what happens, all right? Okay, thanks again.
Wanda, you put the balloons out. I'm doing it again with this, okay? We'll start again. You put the balloons out. Did you ever think that this would not be solved after 20 years?
No, I didn't think it wouldn't. I thought that, yes, it would be solved before 20 years.
There were suspects. We know that. We know that there had been a truck. There was a car that was seized in this investigation.
Yes.
There were little dribs and drabs, but it's all dried up.
Yes, yes.
You believe this can be solved?
I do. I believe that it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, and we've got 999 pieces. We need someone to come forward with that one last piece. Someone out there knows something. Come forward and say what you know. Give us closure.
And Wendy, I mean, you told me she had some health problems.
Yes, she did. She had a feeding tube, a catheter. She was 89 pounds. Quiet little woman. They were a very quiet couple. Kept to themselves. Very often bringing in nieces and nephews to work or live here or even play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very traumatic.
And this must have been a terrible shock then.
It was very much.
She must have-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We stood here 20 years ago thinking that my sister, thinking that she died in a house fire, and only to find out a couple of days later that she was murdered. It's so hard to think of her being taken that way. And 20 years later, it's not any easier. We move on, yes, but it's still hard.
Thank you.